Before Doge, there was Bill Clinton. He cut 400,000 federal jobs. And Al Gore was the executioner.
This report tells us how to cut waste, cut red tape, streamline the bureaucracy, change procurement rules, change the personnel rules, and create a government that works better and costs less.
The Reinventing Government, or RIGO, report aims to save $108 billion over 5 years through eliminating scores of wasteful programs and regulations. Among the 800 recommendations, eliminating 12% of the federal workforce, merging some government agencies like the FBI, the DEA, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, closing hundreds of government offices outside Washington.
Gore should have fired Monica. Would have saved everybody a lot of trouble. It wasn't just Clinton and Gore. The Messiah said he was on a mission to trim.
From the day I took office, one of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending. Now, this does mean making some tough choices. It means cutting some programs that I think are worthy, but we may not be able to afford right now. We haven't seen as much action out of Congress as we'd like, and that's why we launched on our own initiative the campaign to cut waste.
Look at that. Barack was pro-Doge. Now that 65,000 bureaucrats took a buyout from Donald Trump, a very generous buyout, I might add, Democrats are getting very insurrection-y.
Who are you?
You're not coming in.
Who are you? And what do you do here?
What do you do
I
here?
have security responsibility.
Get out of the way. We pay for your job. So what are you going to do? You're going to beat us up if we go in?
I mean, you're going to,
we want you to move
We're
out.
not dangerous people. There are no thieves and thugs out here. We're members of Congress.
They allow billionaires and his minions to come in.
And the kids deserve to have us go in and fight for them.
This is appalling.
The children of this country deserve that battle.
This is a public institution. This is not Russia.
He said he's a federal employee. We pay him. We raise money to make sure that we have a Department of Education. He's standing here today blocking the door, and he can't give us a good reason why he's blocking this door. Do they have guns on them? Do they have guns? Weapons. Are they prepared to shoot us?
Does this remind you of the other people who have blocked the schoolhouse doors before?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Boy, this is a flashback.
And this is going to go out in history. The man who blocked the doors of the Department of... Hold your face up so they can see you. Give me that ID again.
I've given you the ID. I showed it to you.
So what?
I showed you the ID.
You do what?
I showed you the ID.
Could you let me see the ID again?
I'm surprised the Democrats knew where to find the Department of Education because test scores have been dropping for years, and this was the first time they showed up at the Department of Education to stop an audit. And Maxine's asking someone for ID, so racist. Here's the president.
I see Maxine Waters, a lowlife. I see, all these people. They don't love our country. They don't love our country. We want great education. So they rank 40 countries in education. We're ranked dead last. But the good news is we're number one in one category. You know what that is? Cost per pupil.
The more money we spend on education, the more test scores drop. Teachers' unions are doing all right. Not so much the students. Congress is spending trillions. So Doge is in there to look at the books. You're not going to let the people who cook the books come in and scream at you while you crunch the numbers. Try doing math with Mad Maxine screaming like a hyena. It's impossible. You can't. This is like letting your kids into the living room while it's getting cleaned. Nah, they made the mess. They're going to have to wait until we're finished. Musk has whiz kids running AI accounting algorithms, saving taxpayers billions. The correct response is thank you.
We begin tonight with Musk and Big Balls. That's the online name, according to Wired magazine, of a teen tech whiz who, along with others, are helping the world's richest man do whatever it is he's doing, dismantling parts of the federal government.
Yes, so this is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls online, so that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside Doge, and we looked into his background.
CNN thinks Big Balls is a villain. But if he cuts them off, he's a hero. Democrats would rather listen to a random Swedish teen than listen to big balls, a genius teen, saving us billions. We're spending nearly $250 billion at the Department of Education, and Democrats don't even want us to look under the hood.
I haven't heard one single person who's upset with President Trump or Mr. Musk talk about what he's found. They don't want to talk about the spending porn, the waste of taxpayer money that he's found. I mean, that's the point of all this. I tell you who is interested, the American people.
Musk isn't in there stealing the money. He's catching the folks stealing the money. We haven't had anybody look at America's credit card statement for the last 25 years. Could you imagine if your wife grabbed the Amex bill out of your hands and said you weren't allowed to look? That's Maxine. It's childish. Time magazine put Musk behind the Resolute desk and slapped him on the cover just to tweak Trump. Did the president take the bait?
Mr. President, do you have a reaction to the new Time magazine cover that has Elon Musk sitting behind your Resolute desk?
Time magazine. Is Time magazine still in business? I didn't even know that.
Time magazine.
Elon's nerd army sleeping at the Eisenhower building, working weekends, sifting through balance sheets. Doge just announced it discovered an Anthony Fauci exhibit at the National Institutes of Health, which would have cost $170 grand. Well, the Fauci exhibit has been defunded. No department is safe.
It's absolutely obscene, dangerous, bad, very costly. I mean, virtually every investment made is a con job. There's nothing of value to anybody unless there's a kickback scheme going on, which is possible. And we're going to be doing more and more of that. We're going to be looking at Department of Education. We're going to be looking at even our military. We're going to be looking at tremendous amounts of money, Peter, being spent on things that bear no relationship to anything and have no value. We're talking about trillions of dollars. It will be, in the end, trillions of dollars being absolutely wasted and perhaps illegally. I would say certainly in many cases illegally, but perhaps illegally overall.
Elon started with USAID because it was the most obvious place to start cutting. And we heard the fraudsters squeal. But some of these departments are going to cooperate, like the Pentagon, which has failed 7 audits in a row.
We are going to focus heavily to ensure that at a bare minimum, by the end of 4 years, the Pentagon passes a clean audit. The American taxpayers deserve that. They deserve to know where their $850 billion go, how it's spent, and make sure it's spent wisely. It used to be that if you called for an audit, somehow you were undermining the department. I believe the exact opposite. I believe we are accountable for every dollar we spend, and every dollar of waste we find or redundancy is a dollar we can invest somewhere else.
The EPA is also getting put on Ozempic. 100 environmental justice workers getting pink slips. At USAID, headquarters is getting a makeover. The agency went from 10,000 headcount to 300. Biden's USAID chief, Samantha Power, is crying on the tracks of the gravy train.
You think this is a victory for dictators, autocratic regimes around the world who are competing with the U.S. in Africa, in South America, all around the world for influence?
Well, it's not even an opinion. They are out relishing this moment and celebrating it, including a statement, an official statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry today. So this is a disaster, not just from a humanitarian standpoint, from the standpoint of all the beneficiaries who may in fact die because they won't have access to U.S. resources, but it's a disaster for U.S. national interests and national security.
U.S. national interests and national security? Like what? What is the U.S. interest in Juan becoming Juanita in Guatemala? How does Bert and Ernie in Baghdad help our national security? This isn't a victory for dictators. USAID money was propping up dictators, the dictators we like. And if we didn't like the dictator, USAID money went to regime change. This money was just about putting everybody in our pocket, and the deep state put the kickback in their pocket. We told you how foreign aid goes to coups and color revolutions. Well, get this. We told you Wednesday that USAID money was used to trigger Trump's impeachment through the CIA whistleblower. And now we're finding out that USAID administered the billion-dollar loan Biden dangled to Ukraine to get the prosecutor investigating Hunter's company fired. USAID doesn't just mess around overseas. They've been caught screwing around here. USAID coerced big tech to censor freedom of speech. They did it right before the 2022 midterms. But the most criminal element to this foreign aid scheme is that the math shows it's one big kickback racket. This here is in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, some dollars do reach intended recipients around the world, but plenty of the funding goes to local affiliates of those same USAID subcontractors. By most assessments, less than 10% of U.S. non-military foreign aid ends up with locally based organizations. 9 out of 10 USAID dollars ends up in the hands of crooked contractors. USAID was a taxpayer-funded charity scam, as well as a regime change bank. If a charity operated the way USAID does, but only 10% of the money went to feed the kids or save the whales, the executives would get arrested, the charity would get shut down, and everyone would be charged with fraud. USAID makes the Clinton Foundation look legit. Democrats didn't always defend USAID. In the 60s, the hippies used it to protest because it would fund counterinsurgencies in the third world. The New York Times published a searing expose about USAID bribing India to open their markets to American fertilizer exports. USAID funneled money to a Laotian general to create a private airline that he used to traffic opium. The profits used to finance the war against the Viet Cong. USAID is still doing the same thing, but they co-opted the far left by DEI washing the brand. Democrats were like, I don't know about propping up all these dictators and funding these coups. And USAID was like, guys, some of this money's going to sex change surgeries and DEI operas and green energy. And they were like, oh, well, in that case, have at it. On November 5th, America rejected regime change wars, DEI, trans surgeries, and the Green New Scam. But the Democrats are still not listening to the American people. USA Today says perhaps liberals should take a step back and think hard about what they're protesting. They aren't just in your face about Trump and Musk. They're also fighting the 77.3 million Americans who rejected what the Democrats were selling.